Okay, hi guys. This is kind of an experiment today, and it's also really weird looking at myself twice. I've got two cameras set up here, but yeah, this is an experiment to see if it works to answer your questions on Sundays here, and also just talk about what's happening with the comic book, with creating different things, all of that. So, yesterday, I had the chance to go to Wondercon. So I've got this program right here. And yeah, fortunately, I got to go kind of last minute because a friend had a pass available for me. But I hadn't been planning on going. And I got there and I kind of had this anxiety about being there because I felt like, I do have a comic book, The Empties, and I'm working on it. And why am I not there selling the comic book? Like, why am I not putting myself out there? Can't I be doing more to promote the comic book? I had some anxiety about just being at a con to enjoy the convention and have fun there. But yeah, I went there and walked around all the different booths, and it's also overwhelming with all the talent that there is there. You start questioning what you're doing. You're like, everyone is so good, and everyone is able to put out all of these books and all of these products. And where am I at with this project? It's been a year and a half with the Empties, and we are finishing up the fourth issue currently, and we are about to then move forward and keep doing the final two issues, and that will be collected into a graphic novel. So it's been a long time investment, and so I'd say that overall this will have taken more than 2 years to complete the graphic novel when all is said and done. And so we're in the middle stages and working through that middle slog. So it's easy to feel that kind of anxiety and everything. Distracted person. I just noticed all of the surroundings. I'm actually in this little office closet. I just moved in here. So this is, again, a totally new experiment kind of thing to see if it works to go Facebook Live and give you some insight into what's happening with comic book creations and that kind of thing. But anyway, I wanted to, just talk about anxiety, how real that can be, especially when you're around such talented people. I'm not sure how you get through it other than just suffer through and say, hey, I'm also making stuff. I guess that's called imposter syndrome. Like, I don't deserve to be here when everyone else is so talented. So that's a very easy thing to get caught up in. But one of the first panels I did at WonderCon was I got there actually at 10 a.m. and parked very easily. So I was able to get to the first panel. I usually don't make it to a convention like for the first panel, but I went to how to get press coverage, and that was actually really cool. Talking about different podcasts you can be on, the experiences of either going through traditional press coverage on websites, putting together your press releases, or doing it in indie publishing route and talking to everyone you possibly can, and how that can help put together the kind of prestige of your comic book or whatever thing that you're trying to promote. In my case, comic book or movie. But the panel was really cool because I found out that, hey, I knew someone on the panel, and I also knew a couple people in the audience. So I felt like, hey, okay, imposter syndrome is taking over, and I feel like, why am I here? But at least I have friends. I have friends here, so I was able to reconnect with a friend who I hadn't seen in about 2 years, and that was great. And a couple other friends who also make comics and art and that kind of thing, also writers. One of the panelists is a horror writer, Tim, and I had worked with him at the HWA booth before at different conventions. So we kind of do the same thing, and that's one of the fun things about conventions is getting to see people again. And I see a couple people have joined the live video on Facebook, so if you have any questions for me, just let me know. Again, this is an experiment to see if this can even be helpful for you, but hey, at least I have something to talk about because I did go to WonderCon yesterday. WonderCon is a comic pop culture convention, and it's kind of the sister of Comic-Con, but it's nice because there are a lot of people, but it's not an overwhelming amount of people. You can still walk around, you can still get places. Sometimes in the dealer's room, you get crowded a little bit because people will back up at booths for all the cool things that they are buying there. But you can just find so many cool artists and such talent. So I guess going back to this imposter syndrome feeling that I had when I got to WonderCon, I really just took a step back and realized that I am not entirely a comic book person. I am more of a movie person. I am a big movie nerd. I am entirely a sci-fi and horror movie nerd, and I know everything possible about these movies, and it just made me feel like, hey, I'm here with a comic book that I'm using, and I love this medium, but I'm using it to try to show people that this story is awesome and that maybe it should be made into a movie that I can direct. And it's something that I can do creatively in my time to try to get the movie in the best shape possible. But that's really the exercise for me. It's falling in love with a new medium in order to express the ability to or express my vision for the film. So that kind of made me feel like an imposter at this comic book convention as well. Hi, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, just post in the comments here. So yeah, it just made me feel a bit like an imposter because I'm there repping a comic book and everyone is trying to break into the comics industry, which is just as difficult as breaking into the movie industry. And here I am with a comic book, and I know I didn't go through the right channels for the comic book industry. In the most case, I found out that if you're developing a graphic novel, you have a better shot at getting it published, of course, if you go to a like literary agent and pitch your project and get them to rep you, and then go look for someone who like there's a need for graphic novel ideas. So if you get a literary agent to rep you and then go and pitch your graphic novel ideas, they can help you staff with your artist and letterer and creator, and you can be the writer, and they'll help you put together a package that then they know they can sell. So that's kind of like how the TV world works in movies, but I've gone the full independent route and just made my own graphic novel, and that makes me feel even more like an imposter because again, this is not just practice or something. Like, I think the graphic novel is the blueprint for the movie, but it is helping me solidify all of my ideas with the movie and work through it and actually make the movie so much stronger. There were so many sections in the movie that were too long that you realize when you're putting them on the page in a comic book, you don't have that much time to move forward with it. So I've just learned so much more about the actual story by reinterpreting it into a comic book form. And yeah, that That's the thing, though, is that it's still an exercise for me into the world of filmmaking. I think actually this process is something I would want to do for every single movie that I make moving forward. I have directed over 30 short films in my life, and produced lots of films and also worked on many feature films, and now I'm currently in distribution at NBC Universal. But while I was making my own films, I hadn't ever kind of storyboarded. Well, I had storyboarded, but I hadn't put it all together like a comic book before. And I feel like the way the comic book forces you to edit for the page and make sure that the visual is as exciting as the dialogue and the performance. It really just elevates what your ideas are for the movie when you translate back to the screen. So, having made a bunch of short films with just storyboards or shot lists and that kind of thing, I feel like my process for developing movies, especially on the feature film level, has changed in this process of doing comic books, in that I would always do a comic book before my feature film. And that is just kind of proof that this will work out and work out the way I want it to. And it also helps people see that and get on the same page as you. So you have more control over an image when you're drawing it specifically for a page as opposed to when you're filming it. These are just like things I've picked up from my experience in both mediums. But yeah, I guess I'm on a tangent there, but I would definitely do comic books as my technique for making movies. Um, but that is something where I don't want to disrespect all the people who are working fully to do comic books on their own. And so, yeah, much respect for people doing comic books as its own art. It's incredible. I absolutely love visual arts, and comics are one of my favorites that I wish I had come to know sooner, because then maybe I wouldn't feel like such an imposter at a comic book convention where even if I'm walking down the aisles with all of the vendors, I don't know where to start picking up comic books if they're the floppies, like the ones I create. I know, and it's easier for me to find comic books to read if I'm doing it through Kickstarter or through going to the artist alley and picking up their graphic novels, because then I have a story, a complete story from start to finish. So that's just been the easier way for me to read comic books and kind of get immersed in this. But really, I know more indie comics now than I know the traditional medium. So yeah, that comes back to me feeling like an imposter at Wondercon because I don't know enough about comic books, and I also don't have that same drive to break into the comic book industry, even though I'm actually creating a comic book. Again, if you have any questions, but I'm just going to go back and talk more about um, WonderCon. So yeah, and if I call it Worldcon, please forgive me. I keep doing that in my head, like Worldcon, WonderCon. Worldcon is a science fiction convention I go to, and WonderCon is this pop culture comic book convention. So yeah, I basically went to that first panel, and that was nice to see familiar faces and other artists. So you know that, like, hey, you're doing something right. You're seeing your friends. This isn't just an exercise of you having a fun day off. But I also had this anxiety of, like, come on, how fast do I need to create these things? I am working endlessly on this comic book and other projects, writing every day, and I have this anxiety of getting these projects done, but it never feels like enough. It never feels like you're doing enough, and it's like, how long do I have to struggle and work on this and give my life up for this, which I have no complaints about. But why am I adding the anxiety on top of this when I'm actually doing the work? Like, you start comparing yourself to all of the very talented people around you at the con, and all the people who love comics more than you and everything. So yeah, I still feel like a total like kind of loner in the popularity contest of the convention, and also felt terrible for not being in the game myself there and for just enjoying the convention. But after I got there, went to that first panel, I got to hang out with my friend for a little bit and then walk around and see some of my other friends at their booths. Um, and then there were a couple of other cool panels. Let's see. I have the program here right in front of me. It's got a pretty cool cover on it this year. I liked that, even though I haven't read any Batman stuff. I've just seen the movies. I know I'm terrible. Um, One of the noteworthy things at WonderCon was reimagining the Twilight Zone, which was a really cool panel, just packed. I mean, the line was around the corner for the Twilight Zone thing, so that is cool. That seems like it'll be a success. But it was talking with some of the writers on the new TV show, and how they are really trying to create something that evokes the Twilight Zone, but isn't exactly derivative or referencing all of the classic episodes that we do love. So yeah, that was a pretty neat one for me because again, I love screen, I love television, I love the Twilight Zone. I'm a movie person, so yeah, the pop culture things appeal more to me. And then right after that, I went to in the same room a panel called Terrors of the 2020s, where different horror authors geeked out about the things they love, the trends currently happening in horror. And how they made their careers in horror, what they just love about it. They say that elevated horror right now is really a trend, and that is what I love because I'm a sci-fi horror person. I love things that combine ideas with the raw fear that horror brings, and elevated horror like Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone. That's more sci-fi horror, but like Us, Get Out, shows like The Haunting of Hill House. These things are elevated horror where they're combining, dramatic ideas, concepts. I'd say even the original Pet Cemetery, and so the remake of Pet Cemetery hopefully is this elevated kind of horror because it comes from the idea of what you're most afraid of in life, and that's losing people that you love, like in Pet Cemetery. Um, Tragic story, where you have an option to bring back someone and you know that they're going to have experienced that other side, the unknown, the darkness of death, and come back warped and twisted. But even that warped, twisted, zombie like person is better to have in your life, and it's worth the risk than not. So I just feel like that the first movie, Pet Cemetery, hit me on all the emotional levels, and I was definitely scared. It was wonderful and great, like great horror shots. I just thought it was wonderfully directed, and I don't know that they can top it with this remake, honestly. Though I did recently watch it. We're getting on a tangent into things I love here. The original miniseries. Okay, so I watched like an hour and a half of that. I had not seen it before. Mostly, I think now because it is a TV miniseries and it's one of those, made for TV before the golden age of TV now. Anything made for TV is wonderful now because TV is excellent. But this was a TV miniseries, and Tim Curry plays Pennywise. And I just saw that, and that was one of those things that makes you think, yeah, I'm glad they made all the mistakes in the miniseries because that allowed the people now to make the masterpiece, the recent modern horror classic. It was just one of the most perfect movies ever in terms of horror. One, I love clowns to begin with, so they're right up my alley. Anything with circuses, clowns, masks, I mean, everything like that, I'm just crazy about. I would, have a clown in my house. I would decorate my house with clown and circus paintings galore. I do not find them scary. I just love them. So when you have a scary clown in the movie, yeah, that's going to be my thing. Um, so yeah, similarly, Us, that was so right up my alley. Starting that, it doesn't start exactly in the carnival, but it was a brilliant idea to separate Us with the mirrors and everything. So perfect for me. Um, yeah, so that was an It tangent, Stephen King tangent. Oh yes, that's because I was at the terrors of the 2020s. So everyone was geeking out about horror there and trends in TV and encouraging you to go more into TV when you're making horror. Or anything in general rather than movies, because movies tend to be made for under $1 million, especially if you're sticking in the horror genre, which is what I plan to do. That's why I'm making The Empties out as a comic book, to help me exactly maximize the images with a very low budget story. So The Empties is kind of create or constructed with the idea of being a low budget horror, and it has helped the creativity there, because I've had to restrict it to a single location with 3 characters, and it's helped so much to like get in all the little details that I'd find scary or heartbreaking and romantic, and just coming together with that with a limited budget. So yes, I'm trying to work in the movie space, and there is less money being put over to movies than there is for TV, because of things like TV has a incentive to keep watching. It hooks you, it can draw you in, it can bring money from other sources. You can get it on the internet with subscription video on demand services where you pay a monthly fee. You can pay per episode. You can get money through advertisements, even on the subscription video on demand sites like Hulu. I pay for the one that has no ads, but I also have Hulu Live, just because, yeah, Paul's parents have it, so they share that with us. And Hulu Live, you have to have the ads. So there's a lot of different revenue sources for television. Again, thank you guys for jumping in here, and I want to get to your questions. Again, this is kind of an experiment to see if this going live will help, and if I can get some of the questions that I have from my newsletter. A couple of people asked me things like, what motivates me in my writing? So that is a good, that's actually a good question for what I was talking about earlier. Anxiety. Anxiety is kind of what motivates me. I have this fear that I'm never going to create things, and that I'm not going to live how I want to because I didn't create these things. And if I don't, I won't be happy, because I've had only one dream and one focus my entire life, and it kind of works like a firecracker, like a sparkler. So I just shoot off in many directions, but it's all headed to one direction, which is directing movies. And if I have to direct movies by directing television, by directing VR 3D short films I have in the works. I have choose your own adventure kind of story like Bandersnatch for Netflix, or a subscription video on demand service. If I have to do all those things to get me to direct movies that go into the theater, that is my main love. And I will work in any visual art form necessary to get me there. Comic books being my newest favorite love, and one of the sparkles on that sparkler, moving up to directing. So, yeah, we were talking about horror in the 2020s. That was a cool panel because, again, they were geeking out just like me over all of the great new horror coming out, and got to quick chat with them after the panel and give them a copy of The Empties. Because I was like, hey, these people are on my wavelength. I might never see them again unless I give them a copy of The Empties. And I'm here to meet people, not necessarily anything more than that, just to have new friends and people working in the same kind of thing and trying to get ahead. So yeah, I gave them a copy of the empties, and that helped my imposter anxiety go down a little bit from WonderCon, because I'm like, hey, at least I'm here and have created at least a somewhat finished product. I finished the first 3 issues of this graphic novel, and eventually, in a year or less, it will be a graphic novel. So, yeah, that was cool. And then I went to have dinner. They've got lots of food trucks around WonderCon, so you didn't have to go very far. And it was actually pretty good. So many people in great costumes there. I think I even saw someone from Good Burger. I don't know if anyone remembers that movie except this guy who's on roller skates in the Good Burger outfit. That was kind of amazing. But yeah, so I just wanted to be like, hey, Mr. Good Burger, want to have a good burger? Okay, I don't know if anyone remembers that movie, but I do. I used to love Keenan and Kel, and that was an old school movie. So, but yeah, people in all types of costumes, a lot of Game of Thrones costumes, of course, because woo, it's coming back. I mean, I'm gonna start rewatching all of Game of Thrones again because I gotta get caught up and remember what's happening, especially in the last season, which I've only seen like once. So there's that. Hopefully this is going well for you and somewhat informative, but I think I'm gonna try this live video thing for about half an hour, maybe an hour, if people ask questions that I can answer, every Sunday for at least the next couple of weeks, and then see how it goes. I know I haven't done much advertising on social media, but yeah, I guess then one of the next things I did at WonderCon was go to this comic creator connection, which was a really cool idea for a panel, because what it does is it puts writers in a speed dating kind of situation with artists. So you go around and look at different artists and different artist portfolios, and well, it isn't exactly what I needed right then, because I have an artist, I have a team working on the empties. I do have one more graphic novel that I would like to do when I have some financing, and that's from another screenplay I have that I'm not sure will actually ever be marketable for the screen. So I want an artist, and if I found a perfect artist for that, then I would start working on this sci-fi fantasy kind of idea. It's just a really wild, bonkers idea about Lazarus resurrecting, and bringing back a doppelganger in this Jekyll and Hyde kind of story in biblical era mythology. So yeah, that's one of my fun, really crazy stories that I have a screenplay for, and I just love it. It's very colorful, it's very sci-fi, but it's also very crazy, so I'm not sure I would get money for it to go to the screen, but I could definitely do it as a graphic novel. And oh yeah, I went to a conversation with female Hollywood executives. So they talked about women working in film, and it's just great that so many women are executives, that they get to greenlight these different projects and everything. So yeah, overall, WonderCon was really cool. Got to see friends. But got to feel really terrible about myself because I wasn't selling my own comic books there, and I don't have the graphic novel finished. And I'm sure we all can kind of relate to that, feeling like even though I've done stuff, it's maybe not as awesome as these other things. Also, the current issue of the empties that we're working on, issue number 4, it's just character focused, and it's necessary that it's character focused right here, because it's like reconnecting this love and this spark and this passion between Derek and Helen right before all the shit hits the fan. Right? So everything's about to come crashing down, but the entire issue, number 4, is character based. And so the visuals, I feel, have been suffering a little bit, and it hasn't been as fun to draw. It's more clean. It doesn't have that cool body horror moments. I mean, it does. It has like to body horror moments, but they're more subtle because they're character development stuff. I mean, subtle in that like your whole body is rotting, kind of subtle. It's just not like bashed to the head with blood everywhere. It's just rot on your body. So yeah, there's the horror moments still, but they're also getting a little delusional. So trying to ignore those horror moments, also losing their minds a little bit. So but yeah, that's been hard with the fourth issue because it's just a little less visual than I have been used to. And I feel like a failure because there are 2 pages that I absolutely don't like. And obviously, I haven't released this book yet. I haven't printed the book yet, but it still makes me feel terrible that we finished 2 pages and I just hate them. And I keep telling myself, like, this has happened every single issue you've released. You think it sucks, and Eli thinks it sucks, and we're like, oh, this is just it sucks. We are terrible people. But the thing is, I, if it sucks, eventually I'll figure out why it sucks. Or Eli will figure out why it sucks. And we can redo those pages. Like until we print this issue and it's in the stores and in people's hands, we have the time to fix it. But going back and fixing it is one of those things that feels like a failure, even though you're a failure only if you don't fix it. So yeah, I keep looking at this issue and I'm like, man, when are we gonna get done? It's been a longer issue because I've had a few life events, getting married, moving into this new apartment, so I can sit in a closet and talk to you guys. Really, the apartment is not that big, but we do have this little walk-in closet that is now obviously an office. I mean, soon we'll decorate it cool and the lighting will be better. But yeah, that's the thing going on there. And yeah, so it's been hard getting through this issue of the comic book because there are a couple pages that I hate. And I think that we can redo them, but I don't know how. So I just want to get through the stupid comic book. And we should be able to get through it in the next 3 weeks at the most. Might be able to get through it sooner. So we are, less than a month away from finishing this issue. And I've been working on the 5th issue, revising the images, because what I have is a screenplay. So I have taken a screenplay and I've put it into comic book form, which is very similar. And then you add panels, which is kind of like your shot list for a movie, but you add these panel descriptions. And I've been putting panel descriptions in and revising them and feeling like failure because I didn't have the best images right off the bat. It's like the dumbest internal battle of anxiety where you're like, oh, I just wrote this visual and it sucks. And you're like, it has to suck. It's the first one you did. You got to think about it a little more and then play around with those images on the page and then they get better. So, but just not being perfect off the bat or not having all of the ideas right off of the bat is another thing of anxiety. And that keeps me going because I'm like, no, I keep working until it doesn't suck anymore. Or we just have to move forward. Like, I'm not going to sit on this project forever just because I'm not happy with every single thing. Like there have been things I've wanted to tweak in every single issue, and we've tweaked and tweaked up until the release, and then it's done. Those last ones, not going back to revise. So yeah, that was basically my time at WonderCon. That is the question from Shirley for what motivates me in my writing: anxiety, fear of not being perfect, and being so terrible that I have to do it over and over and over again. Fear that I won't be able to direct a feature film unless I have a great story that lots of people like. And I guess it motivates me now that I have a audience. Like I have a bunch of people emailing me every week and talking about the comic book and talking about themselves. So I guess that also motivates me, is knowing that there are people out there watching. Yeah, that helps a lot, to say like, "Hey, I'm good enough," at least that some people have read through this and they're still on my newsletter. I mean, I'm not surprised about that. I'm not surprised that you read it and are still on the newsletter because honestly, I think that first issue is incredible, and same with the second and third. And this fourth one, I probably only don't think is incredible because we're still working on it and I have to fix little things. And like a little tiny thing, like it might be a smudge on the page, and then I'll think the page is perfect. But until that smudge is on the stupid page, I think this is terrible. There's nothing good about it. That's the whole process. Ugh, making art is anxiety-ridden process, and yeah. But I make the time to do it and work on it every day. Anyway, it's been about 35 minutes, so if the two people who are watching right now have any questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up with that 35-minute mark, and I'll try this again next week at 11, but I can also include this video in the email, my newsletter, so that if you have questions, oh, hey, hey, Michael, thank you. You don't like evil clowns. Yeah, I love evil clowns, so like I said, um, and I don't have a novel yet. I'm working I don't know that I'll ever have a novel because I'm so bad at words. I'm even bad just talking to people. So I really like images better. There's something I can hide behind and be like, an image that tells what I was trying to say poorly. I'd rather do something like, here, look, this is a thing. Do I have to describe this thing? Um, but yeah, I miss you, Scratch. It's been a while. Yeah, and hopefully at some point we'll get the Lossless Clubhouse where it needs to be, so you can come back. But I'm also doing the interview panels again, so I know you enjoyed that series, but Craig Miller on April 11th, I'll be going live with that. So those are really cool because I get to talk to people who have actually done cool stuff, and yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna finish up here. Good, thank you for chatting me, Scratch, and we'll talk soon. All right, bye guys.